Hi everyone, my name is Sayyam Khurana, and in open source communities, you folks know me with the name Curious Learner. I have a master's degree from Georgia Institute of Technology, United States of America, in computer science with specialization in machine learning and interactive intelligence. I've been contributing code to open source projects from past 6 to 7 years now, and I've been contributing code to C Python, which is Python's interpreter, Django Web Framework, Django REST Framework, Mozilla's Gecko Engine, which is one of the core parts of the Mozilla's Firefox browser, and I also have some of my own projects which I contribute to, including this package Django Phone Verify. And apart from that, I've been a speaker to various international conferences, and today we'll be gonna make an application in Django which will be fetching data from Open Weather API and then use that data to display the weather details of a particular city. So this will be gonna a hands-on session. I haven't prepared it for this at all, so maybe like we'll have some errors along the way, we'll solve them, we'll see the entire development process, and the idea here is to learn and grasp as much as we could in a hands-on session. So I'll encourage you guys to basically start coding with me, see what I'm doing, try to replicate it, and if you have any questions you can post it in the comment section. uh, Thanks Techie Zilla for inviting me for this session. So yeah, let's quickly get started. So what we'll do is uh, we are in the home directory. So now the first thing we'll do is we'll create a Django project, and we'll first of all make a repository for our Django project. So let's do that. So let's name our app Vedromo. I don't know, couldn't think of a better name. And naming is like one of the most interesting problem in computer science, and one of the most tough problem in computer science. So yeah, let's keep it as Vedromo for now, and let's get inside that directory. So we are inside this directory, which is an empty directory. Now what we'll do is, first of all, let's open this particular directory in VS Code. For that we'll use the code command, and what the code command does is the code is basically an alias to VS Code, and the dot indicates we are opening it in the present directory. So as soon as we do that, we have this VS Code. We can get rid of the old one. We have this VS Code which has our Vedromo repository ready for us to go. So now let's open a terminal. The shortcut for opening this terminal is control and the tilde symbol on your keyboard if you're on Mac. I'm not sure about Windows and Linux. Please check that, or maybe just open it on with the help of the menu. So once we are here, let's deactivate our conda environment. You won't have to execute this step. This is like specific to my laptop because I use conda based environment every time I open a terminal. You might not have conda installed, so don't worry about this step at all. So now what we'll do is, we are inside this directory. So first of all, we'll make a virtual environment for us to work in this project. For every project, this is like a standard practice to maintain all your libraries inside a virtual environment. I've basically seen many people not using virtual environment and directly using their system environment for installing packages, which isn't a very good practice. So always use a virtual environment. So yeah, let me just explain this command very quickly. We used Python 3 here, The minus m indicates that it is a module that we are going to use. The module that we are using is the virtual environment module, and then we say the name of the environment. In this case, we are naming our environment as venv, and as soon as this command is executed, we'll see here that the virtual environment is created, right? So now whatever packages we install will go to our virtual environment. So let's begin by installing Django. So we'll do pip install Django. Let's see what happens. It will go to PyPI, fetch the latest version of Django since we haven't given any version, and then install it inside our virtual environment for us. So it says okay, let's use pip3 for this. Okay, no. So first step is oops, sorry. So we just installed our virtual environment, but we haven't activated it. So we'll just activate our environment first. So we'll say venv pin activate. Now you'll see this venv in front of our command line, which indicates that this particular environment is activated, right? So now we'll do a pip install Django. So now you'll see in the lib section of the virtual environment, um, you'll see everything that is being installed, like whatever packages are a dependency of Django will also get installed here. We can also upgrade pip. Okay, and if you notice here, we have the Django source code right here inside our virtual environment, right? So now what we'll do is we'll start a Django project now. So for the command for that is Django admin start project, and let's name our project Weatheromo. And now if you see here, there is this repository created by Django admin, which has a manage.py command as well as a Weatheromo directory within our Weatheromo directory, having a bunch of files. And let me quickly go through each one of them. The ASGI file will basically help to activate a server, spawn a Django server. The settings contain all the settings that your Django project will be using. We'll be dealing with settings.py in this project a lot. So this is something to take care of while you're making a new Django project. The urls.py file basically contains the configuration of which particular URL is assigned to which particular view, right? So for example, the admin URLs should redirect to admin site URLs, which is basically coming from Django. And then we have also a WSGI file. So Django 3 has this WSGI as well as ASGI. I won't go into details of those because it will be completely out of scope for this hands-on tutorial, and that's not the point here. The point is basically, just make an app which works for now, and probably we'll go in details of every other module in some other time. So the last part is manage.py command, which will help you to run management commands for your Django project. So now what we'll do is, let's go to this repository. So this is the main repository that we have, right? So now one thing we have to do here is we have to make an app for our Django project, right? So this will be a visualization project, which is a weather visualization project, right? So what we'll do is let's go inside this. Now let's come back. Let's say Django admin start app, and let's name our app WeatherWiz. So if you see, we have our WeatherWiz just on the same level as this internal Weatheromo project, right? So this is a Django app, right? So it has a migrations folder where all the migrations that we generate for the database will be created. It has an init file, it has an admin file, It is an apps file. It has a models file which will help you in declaring all the models for your database. It has a test if you'll write test cases for all the service layer functions that you define, all the views that you want to test out. And views.py, as the name suggests, contains all your views. So yeah, this is like we have done with the internal structure that we would need for our project. So what we'll do is um, I'll just go 1 second. I'll just go here. So this is our main repository, and I'm gonna initialize the Git repository. Now I will just add everything here and I will commit it. So the point is like I will create these commits very often. So the point here is that we'll replicate the development workflow as closely as we can, and also I will upload this Git repository on my GitHub account so that at any point of time, if you have any confusion, you can refer to that particular commit, go back to that particular commit, refer it out, see what you want to actually do, what is the diff between your version and my version, if there is any, and basically you could figure out things on your own, right? So we'll do an initial commit, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So now uh, the first part of it is basically we'll go to uh, weather API, and let's see, let's go to open weather map. Ooh, so it has a lot of APIs, so we'll have to see which one we want to use. It has a current weather data, hourly forecast, one call, daily forecast. Okay. It also has historical data collection. It has a maps collection, air pollution, UV index, geocoding, weather stations. Mhm. I think I'm gonna use this one, the current weather data. Let's see what kind of request and response it has. So like I said, I am also exploring this API with you. I haven't done any research as of yet. So yeah, this is like a very raw tutorial. I'm gonna develop it for you, and the idea is that you'll understand how the development is done and you could actually replicate this app on your own. Okay, so this is the example call. It accepts a query parameter with uh, the city name and then an app ID, which is basically the API key that OpenWeather expects. Okay, and you can also do it via city ID. Hmm. Okay, so I'm thinking here. There are now two ways for us to make our app. One way is like on the home page we can give a text box where a person can come in, type in a city name, and then press enter, and then we can go to OpenWeather Maps API, try to query it. But the problem with that is I can make mistakes as a user. My user can make mistake in the city name, right? So like at every point of time we'll be wasting one API call for wrong city names. So I think a better idea here will be to query with city ID. It might have its own sort of challenges because I don't know how many city IDs will be there. But they say that okay, you can make an API call by its city ID, and this particular JSON can be downloaded here, which will contain all the city IDs. So let's quickly grab this. Okay, no, 1 second. What is this? Okay, so this is city list JSON. Let's download this. I'm gonna open this up. What I'm gonna do is I'll open this in VS Code. So let's see. Okay, so this is the file, and it seems like a very humongous file for sure. Oh my god, look at the number of rows that it has. Okay, I think this contains all the cities across the world. Uh, yeah, so as I was suggesting, one way is to use the text box and allow the user to type in anything. The other way is displaying them the actual state name. But I think the and a better way is like displaying the city names in sort of a drop down uh, element. But I'm thinking we can't still like display all the city names that we have, so we'll have to restrict it somehow. Probably like what we can do is we can have two individual drop downs, one indicating the country and then indicating the city name. But for now I don't want to make this too complicated for you guys also. So what we'll do is we'll filter the cities out, maybe like with I don't know, maybe like with the help of like one single country or something. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's get started. So we have this city list JSON, right? And each element in this list is a city, which has various attributes like ID, name, state, country, and the coordinates, which contains the latitude and longitude. And what we'll do now is first of all, let's save all this data in our database and try to use it, right? Uh, this might not be a very good way to do things because these are like there are many objects, but we'll see if in case we land up in any problem, we'll figure out another way to use this data, right? So the first way is we'll use this weather app that we created, and now what we'll do is we'll make a custom management command so that you can say python manage.py and whatever command that we are creating now to basically load this whole of data in one of our models, right? So let's make management, uh, we'll have init, then inside management there will be a new folder commands, and then we have init inside the commands, uh, then we'll have the actual command. So let's say it is load city data dot py, right? So what we'll do is we'll we'll just populate this with the actual command, but before that we need a model for our app to store our data, right? So what we'll do here is we go to models.py, right? And in a split screen, let me open up the city list.json for us so that we can see what kind of things we actually need in our project, right? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll give this model a name. Let's call it open weather city, just to indicate that this is like fetched from open weather. And let's give it model name. uh, so um, what all things do we need in from here? We need the city name for sure. We need the country that the city is in. We can store the coordinates, but that are not necessary. We can store the ID of the city because this is the essential element of everything, right? Because what we want to do is in the drop down menu we want to display this particular name of the city to people, but at the same point of time, while giving the information to the third party API, which is open weather in this instance, we want to supply this particular ID, right? So let's store this information. So we'll have a name, and it should be a char field with max length of what, I guess 150 should be enough. If not, if we, in case we get any error, we can probably increase this, but I guess like 150 should be enough for storing the city name for now. And we shouldn't have a null, and we shouldn't have a false as well. Let's give this a verbose name. So remember, every time you're defining a model, remember to give a verbose name, and probably also use get text lazy, which is for translation, so that at any point of time, if you decide like you're gonna serve your project in various languages, and by languages I mean like the languages we speak, we read, we write, right? So for example, you want to serve this in Chinese or Spanish or French, you should be able to do it pretty quickly, right? So you just give the translation of string, and the app should immediately, work with all those in all those languages that you can support. So so what we are doing here is we are giving it a verbose name, which will be displayed in admin and anywhere in the APIs that we're going to use. But this here is an alias for get text lazy. So we're saying that always convert this uh, according to whatever language that we prefer to serve our content in, right? So now we'll also need a country, similar stuff. Let me just copy it. So let's call it country character field. Let's call it city name. Let's call this one country. Now country. Country is two characters, whatever, two characters. Mm, So okay, let's just scroll a little bit. So for France, they have used FR, and I think that is what they're doing. For US, they're using just US. So I think the country code is just two characters in length. But just to be on the safe side, let's use 10 characters for now, and hopefully it shouldn't cause any trouble. So null will be false, blank will be false. The next thing is we need to store this particular ID of the city that we're getting, right? So now we can't call it city, we can't call it ID directly, right? Because every Django model has this ID field, right? This will be the ID of our model. So until and unless we are planning to override this ID from auto field to some other ID, maybe a UUID or something like that, don't just use ID as this attribute name in this class, right? So what we'll name this is, probably let's call it open weather ID, so that we are pretty sure that this particular ID is from a third-party system and it is not part of our own system, right? And by our own system we mean this particular app, wherever this is hosted. We aren't messing with those, right? So now we'll have the open weather ID, and this is an integer field, right? So what we'll do is we'll say models dot integer field, and we'll give null should be false, blank should be false. They should also have a verbose name, and let's give a verbose name. So the first parameter of this of any field is basically verbose name. So even if you don't give this key, it is okay. If you want to give it, your choice. uh, so now let's name it as open weather ID. And what else? I guess we're pretty much done with the model, right? There's one more thing that we need to take care of. uh, we'll define a verbose name for our model, right? And this should also be actually translated. So let's call it open weather city. So this particular verbose name thing is helpful when you're displaying this model inside your admin panel. I would encourage you to play with this and see how the admin reacts to all of your changes. So the next thing we are we'll do is let's say verbose name plural, and actually let's just copy it, right? So it should be open weather cities, right? And what else? Let's see. Okay, so yeah, we got rid of all those quickly lines complaining about Pep 8. Anyways, so we have this meta class. Now we also need a string representation for our model. Um, but I'm planning not to do it as of now because I want to show you guys how it basically reflects inside the admin panel. So I want to be pretty sure like whatever we are doing here should make sense, right? So let's get rid of this. Okay, so now that we have our models in place, what we can do is let me increase the size of the font a bit. Okay, uh, let us do a python manage.py make migrations, and I want you to see here in the migrations folder that a migration will be created right here as soon as I execute this command. So I will say make migrations and nothing happened, and why it complained is because we made this particular WeatherWiz app, but we never told our Django, the main Django app, that there is an existing app in here, right? So we'll go to settings, we'll search for installed apps, and we'll tell Django that, hey Django, we have a WeatherWiz app that you want to take care of, right? As soon as we do this, and execute make migrations command, it will make those migrations. But just for the sake of it, let me explain something to you. Even if you don't want to do this but you still want to generate migrations for your app, you can give the name of the app and it will force that particular app to generate migrations. Just something to keep in mind, but not a good practice at all. um, this is a very good way to know that the app is not connected. So now we have defined it inside the installed apps, so we should be good to go. So as soon as I do this, I get an error and it says that no module named Django utils translations. Okay, all right, so our migration is created. So if you'll notice here, uh, this particular file is created, which is our migration, right? One more thing, that uh, there is a warning and it says that you should also have this default auto field inside your settings, which is great. Regularly I don't use auto fields at all, and the rationale behind it is they are not particularly safe. You are exposing part of your database saying that, hey, it is easy to guess the next ID, right? And like even how many of those objects are in my database and stuff like that. You can read upon that online. So the solution that many of the developers prefer is using a UUID. uh, we are not gonna use that in this project. I want to make this as simple as I can, just getting all the essential stuff that I really need. So yeah, very quickly what I'm gonna do is I'll define a default auto field as Django DB models and auto field. Let's not save it because I want to show you something super cool. Let's just create a super user. We can't because we haven't done a migration yet. So we'll do python manage.py migrate. We have migrated. We can now create a super user for our site. See, every time you are using a management command, it is still complaining about this field, right? I want you to keep this particular thing in mind because we will get rid of this particular warning as soon as we save this. Uh, but I want to show you this while running run server, because it will auto reload and will actually show you, depict you that this particular error or this particular warning will vanish, right? So yeah, let's use this. Let's say I am at this email address and I have a particular password. Oops. Okay, that's it. And now I will do a run server, and it so something was running on my 8000 port. I just killed it, uh, and okay, let's do a run server now. And as you can see, this warning is still there, right? So I want to show you pretty quickly. If I go to my uh, models, try to define anything, right? So I say define say, and I save it. It will try to reload everything, right? And it still gives the warning. So every time I save it, Django server auto reloads, right? So just wanted to show it pretty quickly so that you're comfortable with this concept of reloading. And now this warning will vanish as soon as I save this particular thing, right, in the settings.py. So as soon as I save this, you'll see that it now says that system check identified no issues and zero silence, right? So yeah, pretty good. Now our server is running. We have a super user in place. So let's go and see what our super user has in for us. We'll go to localhost 8000, and this is the main page, which means like the Django server is running. It doesn't have anything because we don't have an index page as of yet. So we'll go to /admin, and now we'll need a username. Remember we had this username, and then it will ask for the password that you gave previously, and now we are inside the Django admin, showing the groups as well as the users, right? So yeah, now the question here is, okay, I made this particular model right here, right? But I can't see it inside my admin. So how do I see this particular model inside my admin, right? So for that, what we do is we have the admin.py file. So if you see here, we have an admin.py file inside our weatherwiz, right? So it will need a model to import from. So we can say from weatherwiz.models, or we can just say from .models. Let's just prefer doing weatherwiz.models to be very explicit about where the model is coming from, right? So we'll say open weather city, and oops, let's delete that. Now we'll say open weather city. Let's make an admin class. So it should come from admin dot model admin, right? So if you go to your models right here, you'll see that the model class comes from models.model, right? Similarly, your model admin class is the admin class, so it comes from admin.modeladmin, right? So let's not define anything for now, because I want to show you how things change as soon as we do something here, right? So very quickly, I'll need to register the site to admin, and for that I'm going to use admin.site.register. And the first parameter that it expects is the model name, which is open with a city in this case. The second parameter is the name of the admin class that you want to attach, right? And since it is already a model admin class, we can just give it directly. And now let's say this, and our server is reloaded. Let's come here, refresh this, and hooray, we have our open weather cities defined here, right? So this is exactly the verbose name plural that you used, right? So if you want to, change it, I will encourage you to change this and refresh this and see that it will change here, right? So now you can go inside here, you can add your own cities, give the city name, the country, the open weather ID, which is a numeric field now. But the idea is, we have that particular JSON, right, which contains all the IDs. So we don't want to pull all those information manually, right? We can of course do it, but it will take ages for us to go around that humongous file. So what we'll go do is we'll make a management command to load that city data, and the concept here is that we'll make this management command um, to be executed various times without affecting the database. So we'll use something as a create or update, just to maintain our sanity, so that we can execute this maybe like 1,000 times, but the cities and the state data remains the same exactly as it is in the JSON file, right? So now the next step that we have to follow is, we'll say inside weatherwiz, let's first of all define a data folder where we'll keep our JSON file, right? And inside this data folder I need the JSON file that I downloaded, right? So I'm gonna quickly go and bring this JSON file to my data folder, and now this JSON file is inside my data folder inside the weatherwiz, right? Pretty cool. So now I'm ready to write my management command. So I'll go to management commands, and I made this management command, right? So now uh, let's do one thing. Uh, let's start writing our management command. So this is a custom management command, and I will be able to run this with managed python manage.py and then saying load city data, right? So something to keep in mind, like what's happening, why are we doing this, right? Okay, so we have django.co. Sorry, management dot base. We'll be importing a base command, and the command error. We'll also need the model that we created. So the model is this one, right? And it is inside weatherwiz.model. So we'll say from weatherwiz.models import this particular model that we have, right? And let's get rid of this. Okay, now we'll define a command. It should inherit from base command. It should have a help text. So ideally our help text should say that, okay, load city data. No, let's say load open weather city data from JSON file, right? This sounds like it should serve its purpose. Now this should have a handle function, and we should have multiple arguments. And at the end of the command, what I want is it to print something for me, which will be a success message. So we'll say self dot style dot success, and let's say it says successfully loaded data from JSON file, right? So at the end of the command, if this was a success, it should print out the success message. Now we want to continue with the main functionality of this management command. So our idea is that we'll open up this citylist.json file, right? uh, uh, this is the file, right? And let's bring it out here. Okay, never mind, this is the JSON file, and let's um, try to open it and then load the data, right? So we'll say with open, we have to open this file, right? And where is this file? It is inside weatherwiz data and then citylist.json, right? So let's say weatherwiz data, uh, then say city.list.json, right? And we want to read this file, so let's open this in the read mode. Get a pointer to this file. So f is my pointer to this file, so I can now use this pointer to read the file, right? So, and I will also need the JSON format for this data, right? I want to make sure that this particular data is loaded in the JSON. So let's first of all import JSON here, and now we'll say our JSON data can be grabbed using JSON dot loads, because this will be a string, and you just read the whole file. So once it reads the whole file, this will be a string, and then we will use the load s, saying that okay, this is a string and I want you to try to load it as a JSON, right? And if this was a success, it will have all the data inside this JSON data, which will be a list, right? Because this is a list, right? And now we can iterate upon this particular JSON data, right? So this particular list is what we are calling JSON data. So what we can do is, instead of calling it as JSON data, let's call it as city JSON data, or maybe like city JSON, or maybe like city list, right? Just to be very peculiar about naming here. Alright, so now we have the city list, so we can iterate over each city, right? So this is the list that we'll have, and this is a very humongous list. So what we'll do is we'll iterate over each city, right? So we can say for city in city list, right? So I'm saying that whenever I refer to city, what I'm trying to grab is this particular object, right? So on first iteration of the loop, I'll grab this dictionary. On second iteration, I'll grab the next one, and then the next one, and then this, and so on and so forth, right? So now I need to have the city ID, right? So let's say the open weather city ID is now remember that this is a dictionary, right? This city is basically this dictionary, or the next one, or the other one, right? So I want to access this particular key inside the dictionary, so I'll say city and then ID in this way. So this is the ID that I have, right? Now what I want to do is I want to use uh, the model that I created, and try to update or create city that I have, right? And I want to take care that if this particular ID already exists in my database, I will update whatever is coming from the JSON file. But if this particular city is not in my JSON file, I will create a new city, right? With all the information that I need. So what I'll do is we'll use update or create, right? So it will need the open weather ID, and let's let's pull out our models right in here so that we can see what all fields we have, right? So we have the open weather ID, right? We have the name and we have the country, right? So these are the three fields that we need. So let's close this down because now we want to refer back to the JSON to understand what we want to grab inside the JSON, right? So this is the loop we are running all this in, right? So for each city we want to try to grab this OW city ID, right? And now what I want to do is I want to present it with defaults, which is basically saying something, and I'll explain that to you in a bit, but let me just do this first. Okay, so what it is saying is basically for update or create to work, we first want to know if that particular thing is inside our database, right? So if you give multiple arguments here, this is how the Django will try to get that particular information from the database. So we're saying here is try to get this city with this open weather ID, right? And if you get it, uh, just update it with whatever information I'm giving in the defaults section, right? And if you don't get this particular open weather ID in our database, then you will have to create a new row with all the defaults that I have plus this new city ID, right? Because this ID doesn't exist in our database. So use this city ID as the open weather ID and then all the things in the defaults and create a new row. If you already find a row with this city ID, don't create a new row, just get that particular row and update it with whatever information is in the defaults dictionary, right? That is what we are trying to do here, and that is what this syntax implies. So now we want to take the name, right? So now we can just say city and then the name, and here we can say the city country, right? ID we have in here, the name of the city in here, and the country in here, right? And I think that is pretty much it. This should help us to load our database. Just very quickly I will show you that we don't have any cities, um, and now we'll try to load our database with cities, right? Okay, again you don't need to do this conda deactivate. Probably you won't have conda installed in your system or won't have this thing. uh, okay, we'll activate the virtual environment and then uh, we'll go inside with Romo and then we'll do python manage.py, and now our management command that we have created is load city data, right? So we'll say load city data. I hope it doesn't fail. Okay, something is happening for sure. So if you see here, we are using db SQLite 3, and it is journaling whatever information that it has, right? And probably this list is very humongous, so it is taking some time. So let's see what's the state of the database, right? Let's refresh it. Ooh, we have a lot of objects in here. We have 2438. Let's refresh it again. 3138. Okay, so it has started populating our database, and I guess it will take a while because I don't know how many cities are there in the entire world. 4,000. Okay, I guess maybe like 25,000, 27,000, something like that. Okay, let's wait for a bit. I'm gonna wait for a bit, and we'll refresh this then. Okay, so it is continuously writing the journal, and it seems like there is a lot of data inside the JSON file. Let's see how many lines the JSON file has. I guess it is already pretty humongous. Oh my god. Okay. I guess we have to wait a bit, like maybe like 2 to 3 minutes for this to complete its processing. Let's refresh it, and it is still increasing. We have got to 11,000 now. I will keep waiting. I don't want to terminate this command in between. That's okay. I guess VS Code detected that the terminal is using a long running process. Not to worry about anything. It should load in a minute or two, and I will continue this when it's completed. Alright guys, so yeah, I guess it has stopped reloading the journal, so I'm gonna go back and try to refresh it and see what's the current status. Oh my god, it has 47,000 entries. Let me refresh it just to make sure that everything is done. So now if you notice, we have the objects and they have these IDs, and these are internal IDs for our database. These are not the open weather IDs, right? So if I click on any object, I go to this 47695, it appears here. This is my internal ID. This is not the ID which open weather gave us, right? And it's pretty odd, right? Seeing this in the admin panel, which is like open weather city object, right? So let's beautify this. So how we'll do this, we'll go to our admin.py file, or let's not go to admin.py, but I wanted to show you what will happen inside the models.py first of all, right? So we'll go to our models.py file right here, and let's define uh, an str function, and let's do a return. Let's return an f string. We are already past Python 3.6. I think I'm on Python 3.9 as of now, so the f strings should work without any problem. In case it doesn't work, just use normal string format, or maybe like this is a great opportunity to first of all upgrade your Python to the latest version. Anyways, okay, so let's do this. Let's display the open weather ID, whatever it is, for this particular object, and then let's give the name of the city itself, which is self dot name, right? And then let's give self dot country. Let's save it, go back, refresh, boom. So this was the format that we defined the str function, right? So we said that this is the open weather ID, the name of the city, and then the country, right? So I think we're pretty much done here, right? So what we'll do is now we'll beautify the admin panel a bit, going to admin.py, because I remember we used this pass statement here. So let's get rid of it, and let's actually define something in our admin that is that will be useful for us. So first of all, we'll do a list display, and first of all I want to display the ID of my own database, so I'll just refer it to by ID, and that is the sole reason earlier I suggested you inside the models not to use ID until unless you're trying to modify the how the ID of the database should behave, right? So if you want to make it as a UUID, then it is okay for you to define it as attribute of a model class, but otherwise just don't mess up with this one, right? So next I want is the whatever the open weather ID is, then the name of the city, which is like the name, and what else, the country. Let's save it out, go back, and now refresh it. Wow, so now we have this ID. This is the internal ID in our database, the open weather ID, the city name, and the country, right? So now we can also, sort it out on basis of ID by clicking on it. Maybe like if I want to sort it with open weather ID, I can do that as well, right? All right, pretty good. So what we'll do here is now, oops, I just noticed the journal is still being written. So I don't know how many cities are there. Maybe like there are a lot of cities. Okay, we have loaded like 59,000 of those. My god. Uh, 60,000 of those. Okay. Okay, let's do one thing then. Let me quickly open up a shell and okay, let me terminate the terminal, and now I'll say python manage.py shell from weatherwiz dot models import open weather city, and then open weather city dot objects dot filter. uh, let's see if we have something populated for US. No. Okay, let's see if we have something for India. Okay, we already have like 3,000 cities in India, so I think we'll be safe enough with these cities. uh, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, maybe like if you want you can keep this command running. Doesn't really matter because at the end of the day we have to restrict the drop down menu at some point of time, and 3000 is like enough entries for it for sure. uh, so maybe I'm gonna terminate this. You can keep it on, keep it running. uh, Not a big deal. But we I think we have enough things in our database as of now, so we can run the server here once again. Go back, try to refresh it, and we have already loaded at this point of time 65,000 cities, so I think that should be enough. All right. uh, and we have like 3,500 cities for India, and let's just restrict to those cities for our drop down, and let's just go ahead with the rest of the development. Okay, so we have seen how the admin panel is modified, how things are done. Now the thing is, we want an HTML page where we can list the drop down and basically say that okay, these are the cities that you have an options for, and if a person selects one of those cities, press the submit button, it should fetch all the weather details from the open weather API and then display it, right? So what we can do here is let's first go to open weather API, and we haven't really seen like once again what they are doing. They can use a zip. Okay, that's pretty cool. uh, all right, so this is the JSON response that they're giving. So they give the weather details, say that okay, there will be a clear sky. They also give an icon detail. Okay, that is amazing. So that means we can probably use this icon somewhere, maybe if it is available, if it is publicly available. Maybe we'll have to download it locally, or like we will see how we'll figure it out. um, then we have a main dictionary which has a temperature, feels like temperature, the minimum maximum temperature, pressure, humidity, visibility, the wind speed, degree, clouds. Okay, and it also gives the name of the city. So this is for mountain view. It gives whatever is the Unix timestamp of this weather data, and then it gives that, okay, the country was US, this is the sunrise and the sunset time, and if you go here, they have also explained each and every attribute of the API, right? So each every field of the API is particularly well explained here. Okay, so it says if the default unit is Kelvin for temperature, the metric unit is Celsius, the imperial is Fahrenheit. Okay. um, okay. So they say that this is the thing. Now what we'll do is, let's first of all connect the API and get it working. Then probably we'll make a drop down to select the city, right? Or maybe we can go ahead by making a drop down. I guess let's first fetch the data, try to display it, see how it looks. Then we can probably like attach a drop down menu and do magical things over there. All right. So what we can do is, let's go back to our code, and what I want to do here is, oops, oops, I want to commit all of these things, but first of all, I want to make a get ignore file. Let's include the vn. Let's also include the .env file that we'll need later. Let's also do all the PyCache files. Let's also do the pyc files. I think that those should be enough for now. And okay, all this PyCache and everything vanished, so I think we should be good. Let's also not commit the database. Okay, so we'll do a git add, and then we'll do a git commit, and then we'll say that, okay, city data loaded in models, right? Cool, all good for now. So the next thing that we'll do is we'll make an HTML page, right? So let's make a templates directory, and inside the templates directory we'll have the weatherviz folder, which is the name of our app. Let's define a file index.html. So ideally you will have a lot of files like base.html, inherit that base.html in various HTML pages that you'll be using, but for now I want to make it really very simple. So I will just have index.html, won't inherit templates inside templates, and probably include all the script and CSS inside this index.html. Later you can go in refactor it if you want, um, but since this is like a very basic app, just want to keep it very short, keeping beginners in mind. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So we want to do an HTML page now, and let's just print hello world, because I want to see if this particular page will be displayed by our views.py correctly. So the first thing is, we'll go to our views.py file, right? And we'll have to make a view which will allow us to view the weather data for the city, right? So let's name it view weather data for city. uh, it will accept a request. It will render that request, it as a response. It will for the response it will take in the request as the first parameter. The second parameter will be the name of the template, and our template is inside weatherviz index.html. And the third thing it expects is the context. and we're gonna pass some context to this, but for now we don't have anything. So okay, let's get started. uh, we need to connect this view to a particular URL so that we can view it in our Django app. So if I go in here and I go to localhost 8000, which is the index page, I still have the Django page, right? So the idea is that I want to connect my index page and host it here, right? I'll go back. I'll go to index.html file. Oops, not index.html. The urls.py file, because that is where I'm gonna attach this particular view that we have created. And now let's define a path. This will be at the index, and this is what we want to import and attach it at the root. And let's also give it a name, city weather. All right, let's import this view. So we'll say from weatherviz dot views, import this view. Okay, so our server reloaded correctly, so we'll go here, refresh it, and we can see this hello world. Okay, so the first step is done. This particular view is connected to the root URL, and then it is able to serve this page right here, right? So we're pretty much ready to uh, execute our path and display our data. Let's just quickly um, make an HTML page so that we can, whenever we fetch the data, we can put it inside here, right? So we'll say doc type HTML. Let's do an HTML tag, and I think I'm gonna use materialize.css for this. So what we'll be doing is going to materialize. We'll go to the materialize documentation, and now let's go to getting started, and these are the CDN links for the style sheet as well as the script tag. They also have this markup for us, the HTML setup for us. So I think we'll just copy this instead of writing it on our own. But the problem with this is they are referring to the local JS files and the local style sheet files. The font file is being referred from Google API, so this is good. But we need to replace the JavaScript and the CSS files with the CDN links. So we'll copy this, go back in here, and this is our style sheet for the materialized CSS. Let's get rid of this. This is our JavaScript, but as the best practice, we load the JavaScript at the end of the body tag, just so that we are ensuring everything like the semantic meaning remains intact, everything is loaded before it. So we'll copy it over here. Cool. So we have the body, we have everything done. Let's write something in here. Let's go back, refresh this. Okay, so I think materialize is loaded, the fonts and everything is changed now. uh, so one more thing that we want is a CDN for jQuery. So we'll say CDN jQuery, go in here, or we can get this one, copy this, go back in here, and then import jQuery before doing anything else, because the materialize CSS doesn't mention it anywhere. But if you don't have jQuery, a lot of things won't work, and I'll show you examples of that in a moment. So yeah, we have the HTML page ready. So what we'll do is, let's now try to fetch the data, right? So we'll go to our views.py, and now let's close this down, let's close this down, let's close this, and let's make a new file, and let's name it as services.py, because we'll be interacting with a third-party API. So this will be a service function, right, which will help us in getting the details from open weather servers, right? And for example, if in future I want to query maybe like any other third-party API, this service function will then call that particular API, right? So let's name it as get weather data for city. And what does it need? It would need a city ID, all right, because if you notice in here, the API calls need a city ID, right? And the idea that we have is we'll display a drop down menu having the city names, and then we should be able to pass that city ID back to our service function. So one second. Okay, this one, right? This is the call that accepts the city ID, right? So the ID is the city ID. Okay, sounds pretty good. Now we want to get an API URL to hit to. Then we'll hit that particular URL. We'll get the response, and then return whatever is the JSON from that response back from our service function, right? So first of all, we need request to implement those requests. I need an API URL, right? So let's go back. This is our API URL, right? Let me copy it. This is the API URL. It expects an ID. Let's say this is the city ID. So this is the same city ID that is being passed as a parameter to the service function. And then it also requires an API key, right? So we'll store our API key inside an environment and pick it up from settings, because this is not the only file where you need this API key, right? So for example, if this was a large project, you would need this API key probably in many files, right? So the ideal place for it is settings, but then API key is a secret, right? It's a third-party secret. So you don't want to just commit it in your code directly. You'll keep it inside your environment, protect your secrets. It never ever goes inside your code, right? So if anyone gets hold of your code, they don't know your API key or any of those secrets. So now what we'll do is, let's say from django.conf import settings, and then we'll do settings dot let's name it as open weather API key. Go to our settings file, define our open weather API key, whatever we get from the open weather servers. So this should be populated in here in the URL. And I'm actually thinking, since if it was a large project, we would probably need this base URL to hit the servers pretty much numerous times, right? So what we'll basically do in here is, let's grab it from here. Say this is open weather base URL. This goes in here, and now I'll say that, okay, I will pull it out from settings, right? This also has a slash appended to it, so I just give weather. This is the particular URL, the API endpoint, right? And it expects a query parameter ID, and then it also expects a query parameter app ID, right? So I think we're pretty much done here, and yeah, we want to test this out. So let's quickly go back in here, sign in, create an open weather account. I'm gonna sign in as this user. You can go to API keys, create your key. I'm gonna you will also have a default key already ready. Once you create your account, it will take 3 to 4 hours for this key to become active, but once you have this key, you can now go and you can either paste it inside settings, but as I said, this particular API key shouldn't be committed to your code base, so ideally it should be picked up from the environment, right? So what we'll do is, let's import env. So we'll go to Django env. This is the Django env project, and okay, so you can do this, right? We'll do import environ. Okay, now we can say in here that it is picked from env, and the name of the environment variable will be this, right? Alright, and we also want to install the Django environ package, so we'll say pip install Django environ. Cool. um, Now we want to export our key, so we'll say export. uh, this is the environment variable we are using, right? So we'll say export this, and the value for this should be the key that you get from open weather, right? So this key, grab it from here, paste it, press enter, do a run server. Okay, so probably this service function should now have all the information available that it needs to hit the API. But what we'll do is, we'll try to hit this particular API directly with our API key first of all, to know that this is working, right? So now we'll do this, then it was weather, and then it needs an ID, so we'll give them an ID, and it also need an app ID. The app ID is our key, so we'll copy this, and let's get them an ID. So let's quickly go to our admin and grab ID of any city. And this ID is the open weather ID, right? So now I'm gonna add this ID back, press enter. Wow, so we indeed see that this API is working, so we are good. We have the right URL, we have the right API key. This API key is in fact fetching the data from open weather servers, and this is the kind of data that we are getting, right? So let's quickly have a look at this data. First of all, let's go to JSON lint. Let's try to validate this. Okay, so it has coordinates, it has the weather as we saw in the example API call. It has mean, temperature, feels like min, max pressure, humidity, wind speed, clouds, the cloudiness percentage, the name of the city. Cool. This seems like good. So let's just test it out if our if it is indeed working in our code, right? Okay. So now what I'm gonna do is I'll turn off the server for a bit, and I will try to import this particular service function inside my shell to test it out separately, just to ensure that this service function is working. Then I'll attach it back to the views and see the data coming in our templates. So okay, so this particular service function is inside weatherwiz and services, right? So we'll say for from weatherwiz dot services import, and then we say get weather data for city. Okay, it says you don't have requests. Fine. So we'll install requests using pip install requests, and now we'll execute the shell again. We'll try to import the service function once more. Hopefully this time it should work. So we'll say weatherwiz dot services import get weather data from city. Yeah, it worked. We will also need requests, and we will also need the settings from Django conf, right? Just so that whenever we execute this function, it should have access to settings to have the base URL as well as the API key, right? So now what we'll do is we'll call this function. We'll have to give an API a city ID. So let's give this city ID that we grabbed, right? So this is the city ID. Oh, it says it is an invalid API key, but we saw that this particular URL indeed works. So probably we made some little mistake in here. Um, okay, let's see. So let's print out this URL. We'll have to execute all those commands again. To ensure that we have imported everything. Let's execute this function with the ID that we have, which is 2654411. Let's copy this. It should go in here. And okay, so this is a particular URL that it is trying to hit to, right? It is open API openweathermap.org data 2.5 weather ID. This URL seems fine to me. Uh, okay, this is indeed strange. Because this URL is returning JSON inside the browser, but not with the request package. Okay, strange. Okay, let's just do requests dot get and try to get this URL. It is a valid response that is coming in, and it has the JSON response. So why is our service function not working? The API URL is indeed correct. Then I just did requests.get, then the API URL, which is exactly what I did in the shell. This is quite strange. Um, let's connect this to our views, and if there is an error, we'll try to debug it inside the run server using a debugger, right? So what we'll do is we'll call this. For now, we'll give a city ID to it on our own, a static city ID, and we'll get the weather data from this API, right? And we'll pass the whole weather data to the templates in this weather data key, right? So this is our code. We will need to import this service function that we have used. So we'll say dot from services import get weather data for city. I think this should do the trick. Um, and one final thing that I want to do is I want to go inside our index.html page, and in here data from API is what it should be inside the weather data, right? Because I'm passing this weather data to the templates, right? So I'm gonna save it, go in here, let's go to the index page, and something broke. Let's go back, see what's happening. Okay, we have to restart the server. So we'll restart the server. Now refresh this. Okay, so data says that it is an invalid API key. Okay, fine. So what I'm gonna do is I want to go to the service function and see what's happening. Probably my hunch here is that the API key is not being passed correctly. Something is off. Okay, so this is the URL that it issued the request to. Let's go to this URL. What? Okay, let me take some time and debug this. Alright, so in order to debug this, what we'll have to do is we'll install IPDB, which is an Iron Python debugger, so that we can attach it right here when this API URL is found, because I'm pretty sure that this particular URL is not coming correctly, and that is the issue with it. So we'll say import ipdb and we have done pip install ipdb in here, so we can do a run server now. So now we'll go in here, we'll press reload. We can see it will keep on reloading, right? Because the execution is being stalled in here because we have ipdb activated, right? So now let's print out the API URL. I'm pretty sure something is off with that particular URL, and the thing is that it is appending a slash n after the key. Okay, I think I have got the answer, and the thing that is happening is using the export command. So we'll do an export. Oops, so yeah, we appended a slash n incorrectly after our key, so that was the issue. We'll export the actual key again, we'll do a run server, but let's just remove this ipdb command, because I'm pretty sure it will work without it now. We don't have to debug it, we have already debugged the issue. So yeah, let's go back in here, press refresh. Wow, so we have retrieved all of the data from the API, right? And this is being served inside our template, so we can just use this data and display it as we want, right? So the next step that we want is we want to use this particular data and display it in a beautiful format, right? But before that, what I'm going to do is I just copied this particular response that I got, and I want to quickly go to my views.py, um, and I want to replicate this weather data, and then just give this weather data that I retrieved from the API directly in this particular variable, which is being passed to my template, right? And I want to comment out this line, which is the service function, which is calling the API. Why I want to do this is because I don't want during my development to hit the third-party server various times, right? Often in third-party services, there is a limit to how many times you can call that particular API. So I don't want to run out of limit before I complete the development of this small app, right? So just a safety precaution, you may do it, you might not do it, but since we're trying to replicate an actual development here and trying to be just cautious about things, so we'll just comment it out. And yeah, this is the data that we will use. Let's just go back, try to refresh and see that okay, we are getting this dummy data now, right? And this is the static data that we are providing directly to our templates. So now what we want to do is we want to go inside our index.html page, and we want to complete this page, right? So we want to write out some HTML that is capable of displaying the weather details for a particular city. So what we'll do is let's first of all write a nav, right? And okay, so this is our nav, and let's make a div, give a class of container. So whatever classes I'm giving, these are materialized CSS classes, so please ensure that you're giving the same classes, otherwise your CSS could break. Let's say this is my logo, and my app is with Romo. I want to decorate it as a brand logo, so I'll do a class of brand logo. Just let's go here, refresh it. Okay, we have a pretty good header now. uh, so what we'll do is let's just put everything that we have inside a container. So we'll make a div in here, and let's make a container. Let's put our data that we're getting from the API. For now this is dummy data, but we'll get it from API to display this. Okay, so now it looks a lot better. So inside the nav, let's not use container, but let's use nav wrapper, uh, and let's just center the logo by using the center class. So yeah, this is looking good. So now what we'll do is let's also add a footer to our page. So we'll do a footer, class of page footer, and let's give a div class of footer copyright, and this is my footer copyright. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a container in here, and inside the container let's do a copyright symbol, and this is for Techie Zilla YouTube channel. So let's put their name out, and let's use you'll just come to know what I'm doing. So I'm this is like the less than and the greater than symbol with a slash in between. We cannot directly write like this in HTML, so that is why I'm using and LT and GT, right? With let's say hearts by, let's give my name. So free text like in 4. Let's also give the hyperreference to my website, I don't keep this website updated as of now, uh, but yeah, maybe like someday I'm gonna update this. So let's just save it. Let's see what happens. Cool. So we have this less than, greater than, we have a cute heart there, and then it points to my website. Okay, cool. I'm pretty much happy with this. And I think there was also a sticky footer in here. So let's see if they have that. Pagination, navbar, footer. Okay, and here we go for sticky footer. So it says, okay, if you want to make footer sticky, you want to have this in CSS. Okay, as I said before, we'll just input CSS directly in this HTML template because I don't want to split these a lot, just to help beginners to understand what we're trying to do here. So the purpose is, get things working, and then you can probably go back, refactor stuff. So what we'll do is we'll add a style in here, add this, go back. I think probably it shouldn't work because yes, it didn't work because I think we have user container and this uses a main. So we'll use a container, because if we go in here, instead of the main tag we have used a container, right? So yep, here we go, right? So everything is in place. We just have to write some HTML, display this data that is coming in, and we'll be done, right? So let's go back inside this container. Let's try to give the data, right? So what we'll do is, let's make a div and let's try to fetch whatever is coming from the API. So we'll say weather data, and let's see what is there inside the JSON, right? So we'll go to our views, because this is the JSON, right? Let's do one thing. Let's go back. Let's go to JSON length, paste this, validate it, get it back, and paste it in here. Just did this so that it is easier to read for us. Now we have this weather data, right? So I want to display the name of the city, right? First of all, I obviously know for now which city is this, but if I'm the one who is selecting a particular city, I should just display whatever the city came in from the API as well, right? So we'll say that, okay, weather data dot city, not city, we'll say weather data dot name. This is the city, right? So we'll display this, and let's also display the country, right? And what I want to do is I want to go inside this weather, right? I want this to be displayed like what's the exact weather, like if there are clouds, if there is clear sky, right? I want to display all those details first of all. So since this is an array, this is a weather array, what I want to do here is I will have to write a for loop for this. So I'll say for wt in weather data dot weather. So this is the array, and the wt refers to the the instances or the elements inside the array, right? What I'll do is I'll end this here, and inside the array I'll display the main, whatever it is. I'll also display the description, right? And let's see how it is coming out so far. Okay, so this is the city name, this is cloud, and then the description, which is few clouds. Now what I want to do is I want to make it really relevant to the user. So First of all, I want to center out this div, right? So I will give it a class of center, right, and move everything in here to this div, right. And what else I want to do is I want to basically get this inside another div. So I'll give a div here, and I'll close that div here. I'll open a div again, and then display that information in another div, right. So I want to give this div some style. Again, like I'm being very informal by writing CSS. Not a good idea to write inline CSS. Probably you should better place it in a CSS file. But for now, I am just doing it here. Again, as I said, first make it work. Once you're satisfied, you can move it out, right? You can refactor it. But obviously, refactoring would take its own time. So ideally, you should write a CSS file. I am just trying to save some time, as well as don't want beginners to figure out on like okay, what's happening, why we have so many files and so on. So I'm just trying to write it out in here. So we'll write this, and now what we'll do is we have font size. Let's give this a style, and let's say the font size should be 24 pixel, and okay, it didn't display it correctly, and the problem is in here. Okay, clouds, and okay, this got onto a new line, so that's why it's not displaying it. So this is an auto formatter working, which is doing all those random stuff. So yeah, next thing is we can also use this icon that is coming in, right? So let's go to the API and see how we can utilize this icon, right? Alright, so I'm searching for icon. So it says weather icon ID. How can I use this icon ID? Uh, with icons, range of thunderstorm, drizzle, rain, snow, clouds. Um, these are weather condition codes. Okay. Okay, let's go to weather condition codes. It says that yes, how to get icon URL. So you can use the URL. For example, for icon 10D, you can use this particular URL. So let's go to this URL. Okay, so we have a cute little image here. So we can use this URL that we have. So okay, let's try to add an image, right? So we'll give the image source. Let's give the static image source for now, and let's refresh it. Okay, so the image goes in here, and let's make it a P, and the P in here, rid of the div. Okay, so pretty cute. Let's just replace this 10D with the actual icon that we are getting for this particular city, and the icon is inside again the weather and then icon, right? And we have to iterate over the data to be able to display it. So we have to move this out, move this one out as well, and then use wt dot icon, go back, refresh. Okay, so since the Bucky has clouds, we have this cloudy weather in here. We have got the image correctly done, and now I think the idea is that we can have a table to display the data, right? So we can have it in a tabular form, but instead of a regular vertical table, we can make a horizontal one, because we have m- much data to display, and there will be many attributes, right? So we'll make a horizontal table. So nothing different in a horizontal table, rather than just you referring the semantics differently in the HTML. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So we'll say that, okay, we have a table row, and we'll have a table header. Let's say which city is this, right? And we already have displayed the city information, but I just want to display it inside the table once more, because if in case anyone wants to copy it, they should be able to copy everything from the table itself, right? The table data, we fetch it from weather data, and it is inside the name, right? This one. So we just say name, and that's pretty much it, right? And what else? We can say we want the country, so it should be inside weather data dot sys dot country, right? So weather data dot sys dot country, go back, display it. Okay, our table is coming out perfectly fine. What else we can do is, first of all, let's make it a striped table. So yeah, this should give it a pretty good look, right? Or let's remove it for now. I'll attach it later so that you will have a better idea of what's happening, right? Now let's display some more information. Let's see what else we can display in here, right? First of all, let's just display whatever weather details we have, right? As we have displayed in here, right? So let's display this, refresh this. Okay, we have a syntax error, and the error is on line unclosed tag. Okay, yes, because we haven't closed the for loop here. So let's do it. Do an end for. Okay, pretty good. We just need to get rid of this style, because we don't want to mess it up inside the table. And yeah, this is pretty good, right? Okay, so we have weather details in place. Let's now fetch the cloudiness, right? So it is inside cloudiness. It is inside weather data, and then in the clouds key, right? Sorry, I made an error here, right? Let's copy it again, go back, refresh it. Okay, so it says the cloudiness is all 20, because the cloudiness again has the percentage inside the all key. So we will say here that cloudiness is all dot clouds, right? And it should give 20 in here now. Oops, sorry, clouds dot all, right? Okay, pretty cool. Now the next thing we can have is, of course, temperature, because any weather app is not a weather app until and unless it has temperature. So let's include that. So we'll say we have temperature, and the temperature, it is inside main and then temp. So let's say it is weather data dot main dot temp, right? Let's get rid of this one, save it, refresh it. Okay, we have temperature, but this is in Kelvin, as we saw in their API. By default, they are returning everything in Kelvin. We'll try to figure out how to display it in Celsius or Fahrenheit. But first of all, let's complete out our table, right? So now let's just replicate it, and we have a bunch of things from temperature, right? So we have a temperature, we have a feels like temperature, and it should be inside feels like right here, right? Then we have minimum temperature, maximum temperature, so quickly get those in. This is inside, oh, not max temp, it is inside temp max. Okay, so temp max and temp min. Pretty cool. We have everything in here. So let's just add pressure and humidity as well. So pressure, let's add humidity, go back, refresh. Okay, we have the pressure and humidity values as well. It does not have the metrics, we'll add those, but for now let's just add whatever data we want in our temperature app, right? So let's see what else we have the wind speed and degree, right? So let's add those in. So if you see, we are just passing this JSON and then referring to the values wherever they're coming from, right? So if this is a nested dictionary, we're going inside that particular dictionary and then referring that to that particular value. So now let's do something for wind speed. Let's do wind degree, and it should be inside wind and deck and wind and speed. Let's save it, refresh, and we can indeed see the wind speed and wind degree being displayed now. Okay, what else? What else? Let's see. We have included this. We have included all this. I think we are pretty much done. If you want to include any other details, by all means, feel free to include it. But I'm gonna do one other thing here. So this is like our final page for displaying the information. What I'm gonna do is, first of all, like it is really hard for anyone to read this table, right? For example, there are many rows inside it, right? So if I'm referring to this, I want to know that, okay, this is the min temperature, right? I don't want to refer it the min temperature as this, or maybe like this value, right? So let's make it easier for our users to view this table, and what we'll do is we'll make it a striped table, and let's go back, refresh. Now it looks indeed really very beautiful, right? Because I can know that, okay, weather detail is this one, right? I can immediately know it, and styling wise it looks a lot better. So I'm done with this. What I need to do is I want to have metrics involved with all those values, right? So let's go to our API, this one, and let's see what all values are there. So temperature is default, Kelvin, metric, Celsius. Can I display it in Celsius? Let's see. Let's search for Celsius and see if they're given something. Okay, so they've said that temperature is available in Fahrenheit, Celsius, and Kelvin units. For temperature in Fahrenheit, use units imperial. For Celsius, use units metric, and so on and so forth in the API call itself, right? Okay, so this is a parameter that we have to use, standard, metric, imperial, or all the choices that we can give to the API, like they're giving in here. So I think this is really very easy. So I'll go to my service function and I'll just say in here that units is metric. This won't work now because I am not using my API for now. I have, if you remember, I have short circuited my view and not calling the API anymore. I have this data inside it. What I want to do is I want to test it out, right? I want to fetch the details for the city and see if they are coming in from the API, and I am able to display all those details, right? So if everything works, we should see. Ooh, so if you notice, this image changed, right? So something actually changed, and if you see, the temperature is now indeed coming in Celsius. So what we'll do next is we'll attach metrics to each of these now. So let's do it, and for that, let's see the parameters, right? So let's see what they have. Weather fields in API response, and go to JSON. Let's go to format. What do they have? Okay, this is pretty cool. This is what we wanted. Fields in API response. So it says that the temperature, everything will now be in Celsius, right? And humidity is in percentage. So let's go back. Let's go to our index page, and let's say, okay, I want cloudiness, right? So what is cloudiness? So cloudiness is percentage. So I'll attach a percent after this value, whatever the value is coming in from the API. The temperature is in Celsius. So what I'm gonna do is I want to use the degree Celsius symbol. So I'm gonna add it inside a span tag. So I'll let's its value will be 8451, I guess. Okay, let's try it. If this value doesn't suit, then we'll search for it. Let's go in here, refresh it. No, it didn't work. What's the issue? Oh, I forgot pound symbol. This should work now. Okay, degree Celsius comes in here. Just leave a space in here, and let's just copy this for all the temperature data, right? All right. Let's go back, and wind speed is, if I'm using metric, then it should be in meter second, right? So wind speed should be in meter per second. The degree is in degrees, so I'll just say degrees. Okay, I'm displaying it twice, so I'll just remove it. I have pressure and humidity as well. So the pressure is this and humidity is in percentage. So pressure is goes, humidity is in percentage. I think we have added all the metrics. Let's just see how our page looks now. So we refresh it, and pretty good, right? It now looks a lot professional. So I think I want to add a little bit of padding to the footer. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to the style tag. Let's add one to the container too. So I'm gonna say that margin bottom should be at least 3 em. Yeah, I just wanted to leave some space of the table so that it looks good. I think it is appearing pretty good. One thing is I want to get rid of this data now because I have already displayed everything that I wanted to display, right? So I'm gonna go to the index.html page pretty quickly, and I'm gonna remove this. Now everything is working fine. I will go to views.py, get rid of this dummy data that I posted because I'm not using it anymore. This is it. Let's refresh it, and yeah, it is displaying me all the weather details of a particular city. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna commit everything till this point of time and say able to fetch and display weather details of city, right? Done. And the next step is I want to have a drop down where I can select the list of cities, right? In order to make a drop down, what I'm gonna do is I will make a form, right? Because all the city details have already been there inside our models. If you remember, the model, this model we created, we'll just gonna fetch all the details from this model. So what I'm gonna do is let's create a new file in our WeatherViz app. Let's name it as forms.py because I'm gonna create a Django form. So we'll say from Django import forms. We will also need the model that we created. So let's see where that model is. It is inside WeatherViz dot models import. This is the model, right? uh, let's make a form. Let's name it as city form because this is a list. This will display the list of choices of cities that are available for us to have the weather information for. Let's do a forms dot form. I want to have a city, and this should be, oops, a choice field, right? But the problem here is I have dynamic choices, right? So I can't give my choices in directly in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fetch all those choices and preferably filter those choices out because I know for sure that these many choices won't be displayed in the HTML page. Um, Not on server, but definitely like even not locally, it's not possible to display like 60,000 choices in a choice field. So yeah, let's just keep it simple. We'll filter those out, and probably like we'll try to display all the cities in India and then see the temperature of those cities, right? So what we'll do is let's say let's go to the initialization function. Let's override it, and let's first of all before we forget, let's call the super init so that it can do its magic, and we don't bring a hurdle inside what Django wants to do, right? Alright, so what we want to do is I want to go to the city field, and I want to display a forms dot choice field, and inside this I want to give choices, and it would be a tuple, and will be an ID, and there will be a display value, right? So I'll say that the ID is the open weather ID that is needed to be supplied to the API, and that is what we want in return from the Django form, right? But for display purpose, I want to display the name of the city. Where did I get these attributes from? From the models itself, right? So this is um, what I want, and this city should be in the open weather city dot objects dot filter. Country I want is India, and what else? Let's try to see what happens. Okay, we haven't used this form at all for now, uh, so we'll first use this form. uh, okay, so what we'll do is we'll have to use this form inside our views, right? And basically pass it to our template. So let's go to views.py and import this particular form that we have created, which is city form, right? So in here, let's say from dot forms import city form, right? And I want to pass it in the context, so I'll pass the entire form in the context. So I'll say pass in the form. uh, the form is basically the city form, right? And inside the index.html, I want to display this form out, right? I want a select field to be there, uh, which can display all the list of cities so that the user can select them. So what I'll do is, let's put up a form inside our container. So this should be the very first thing, because everything else is just the result which we'll get from the API, right? So first thing we want to display on this page is the form. So let's make a form, and it should have an action, right? And it should have a method which should be post, and since we are using Django forms, it will also have CSRF token. If you don't include this, your form won't work and you will keep on wondering why. So don't make this mistake. Alright, now let's render our form. Why I'm using form.asp? Because this is the exact same thing that I'm passing to the template, right? I'm gonna save it, go back, restart my server, go back, refresh this. Hopefully I have something. Okay, I have something, but the issue is that the select field is not being rendered. And let's inspect the page. Why is that the case? Is it a select field? There is actually a select field, and we also have the city values. If you can see in here, the options value is populated by the ID, and the display name is the name of the city. So this is correct. Um, but somehow materialize CSS wants to play with us, and it just doesn't want to display the select field. Okay, so we have to debug this issue, and I'm pretty sure this is an issue with the jQuery. So what's the version of materialize? It's 1.00. Okay, let's go to console. Let's see if jQuery is loaded. It seems it is loaded. Instead of the min jQuery, I just copied the actual jQuery file. Let me refresh this. No, it doesn't work. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's first of all add a submit button to our form. So we'll add an input type submit, and the value should be submit. And what else? Let's also define the URL of the form, and this should be URL for this view, and this view um, can be referred by this name, right? So we'll give city weather in here, and let's refresh it. Oh, sorry, I'll have this inside the URL tag. Okay, so we have a submit button. Somehow the select button is not being displayed. What I'll do is, for now, let me comment this out. Not this one. Let me comment this out just to check everything is working without materialized CSS. And yes, indeed, everything is working without materialized CSS, but something is still fishy because of this one. Okay. Okay, so the image here again changed. If you notice, it is now clear sky. Okay, let's see how we can debug this. All right. So the issue is that the select form is not rendering, and this is just when we have jQuery already included. All right. So the issue is that the select element inside the form is not rendering, and it is happening only when materialized CSS is being used. If I remove the CSS, it does not affect the select form field in any way. So I just did a quick search, and it seems like we need to execute form select on select element, right? So what we'll do is we'll go back to our code. This is our index.html. So what we'll do is we'll include our script tags here, but before that, let's verify that this solution will indeed work. So what we'll do is we'll select this select element with the select tag, right, and then do a form select on it. Oops. Yes, it indeed initialize the entire select field, and now we can select it inside materialize.css, right? So I think we should be pretty much good with this. So what we'll do is inside the script tag, let's do document.ready. So we'll do document.ready, and it should have an handler. And let's now do select dot form select, and let's end it here, save it, refresh this, and yes, it is working now. So we're pretty much done, and if we look at the values, I think these values are sorted in the reverse order, and these are all the Indian cities, right? So no, they are in random order. Let's just sort these in alphabetical order, and for that what we'll do is we'll go to our forms.py, because that's where we are initializing our form field, and let's just do an order by here, and let's order it by the name of the city, right? Let's go back, let's refresh this. We broke something, I guess. Oh no, the server is just restarting. Okay, so I think we should be able to refresh it now. Okay, let's see it, and yes, now these are sorted. So what we'll do is we want to get the status of Delhi, right? But this won't work right now. We can submit it, but then we haven't connected it, right? we haven't connected what should happen on the post call for the particular view. So what we'll do is we'll go to our views.py file, and we'll now divide it, and we'll say that okay, if there is a post request, right, if there is a post request, you want to perform something, and what we'll do is we'll get the form with all the data, and we'll check if the form is valid, which means a valid value is being selected. Of course, we just have a select field, so most of the time the form will be valid because user have a limited choice in what they opt for, but still we'll get it right. So now let's get the city ID from the actual form. So we'll access the clean data and then get the city, I guess. Let's see what was the attribute. So we have a city attribute, right, and that is the field that we want here. So we'll get city, and let's actually give it a default ID. Let's actually give it. So what we'll do is let's go to admin, let's go to open weather cities. We don't have search here. Okay, what we'll do is let's open up a shell right here, right. So we have got this shell, and now what we'll do is since we already have the environment variable loaded in this shell, let's just execute the shell here. Just wanted to save some time. Okay, so I've imported open weather cities, right. Now let's just query our database, and let's try to get Delhi. Okay, we indeed have Delhi, right. So what we'll do is let's store it here, and let's see the open weather ID for Delhi, right, and it is this ID. So what we'll do is if you don't get anything, just display the data for Delhi, right. You can also keep it null, do all sorts of error handling. You're welcome for that, and ideally you should do that in that case, in this particular case, but we're just going ahead and displaying the data for Delhi if there is nothing present, right. Then what we'll do is we'll have to fetch the data, right, with the help of the service function, and this city ID will be the city ID that is retrieved from the form. Once we have all those data, there's one more thing we want to do. If this is a get request, right, we have to initialize the form, an empty city form, and the weather data should be empty, right, because we don't have a weather data when the form is first loaded, because we have to select a city, right. So now what we'll do is start the server, we'll refresh the page, and we'll also go to index.html, and we'll have to do a bunch of things. So but first of all, let's select, yeah, so if you see here, it started retrieving the data for Delhi, right, because in the get request itself we asked for it, right. Let's just try it for some other state. Let's submit it, let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, so it fetched all the data for this particular city, and we have to do some sort of thing here, uh, which is, I think I will probably, so what I'll do is I'll add all the resultant information that we have got only when we have that data to display, right. So I'm just adding an if else statement in the template, and I'll say that okay, this is the else part, and if there is nothing, uh, just don't display anything, right? Because we already have the form in place. So when the user will come first to the site, they should just have an option to select a city. Once they are done selecting that particular city and pressing the submit button, we'll go and fetch the details of that particular city and display it to them. So let's refresh it, and ideally we should just now see the select form and nothing else, because we won't have data to display at first. I don't know what is taking so much time to query. I guess it is because of the call for 3000 cities in the India. So probably we can filter it down, probably like to 1000 or something. So let's actually try it out. So what we'll do is we'll just say that let it order by, and let it just fetch like the first 1500, right? Let's refresh it now. Okay, yeah, it the speed has increased, but we just missed an end for or end if. It is on line 123. So let's just quickly go to index.html, go to line 123. Oops, sorry. uh, this should be end if, right? This was an if else statement, not end for. So let's refresh it. Okay, and yeah, that's it. So we're getting all the data, we are displaying it, and yeah, let's call it a wrap. If you have any questions or comments, please put it in the comment section below. I'll try to reply it, or someone else will definitely get back to you and try to resolve your issues. And yeah, I'll probably see you the next time. Thank you very much. Thank you once again to Techie Zilla team for inviting me for this session, and I'll see you in the next one.